The salty breeze carried the scent of plumeria across the Maui Resort's infinity pool, as I adjusted my sun hat and watched David emerge from the crystal-clear water. His athletic frame cut through the surface with practiced ease, water droplets glistening on his tanned shoulders. For a moment, I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach, the same one I'd experienced 15 years ago when we first met at Northwestern University. "Come on in, Sarah. The water's perfect," he called out, his trademark smile spreading across his face. The same smile that had charmed me through college convinced me to move to Chicago with him, and sealed our marriage proposal on Navy Pier. I slipped off my cover-up, revealing the new emerald bikini I'd bought specifically for this trip. At 37, I still turned heads, my auburn hair catching the Hawaiian sun like copper wire. This vacation was supposed to be our reset button, a chance to rediscover each other after months of growing apart. "You look incredible," David said as I waded in, his hazel eyes appreciative. He pulled me close, his hands finding my waist underwater. "I'm so glad we did this." The warmth in his voice sent relief flooding through me. Maybe I'd been overthinking everything. Maybe the late nights at his law firm, the hushed phone calls, the emotional distance maybe. It was all just stress from his partnership track. "Me too," I whispered against his ear. "We needed this." We floated together in the pool, the Pacific, stretching endlessly beyond the resort's edge. Other couples lounged on cabanas, servers in white uniforms gliding between guests with tropical drinks. Everything felt like a postcard, too perfect to be real. "What do you want to do tomorrow?" I asked, running my fingers through his dark hair. "I saw they have couples massage packages, or we could do that helicopter tour over the volcano." David's body tensed almost imperceptibly. "Whatever you want, babe. I might need to take a few calls, though. Big case heating up back home." There. It was again that wall that seemed to slam down whenever I tried to make plans beyond the immediate moment. But I pushed the feeling aside. We were in paradise. I wouldn't let work anxiety ruin this. That evening, we dressed for dinner at the resort's signature restaurant. I chose a flowing maxi dress in deep blue that complemented my eyes, while David looked devastatingly handsome in his linen shirt and khakis. The restaurant perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, tiki torches flickering in the gentle trade winds. "To us," David said, raising his glass of wine as we settled at our oceanside table. "Two new beginnings." I clinked my glass against his. Hope blooming in my chest. Two new beginnings. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine. We talked about everything except the elephant in the room, the growing chasm between us over the past year. David seemed more present than he'd been in months, asking about my interior design projects, laughing at my stories about difficult clients. "Remember our first trip to Hawaii?" I asked as we shared a decadent chocolate lava cake. "That tiny bed and breakfast on the Big Island where the shower barely worked?" David's smile was genuine. "And you insisted we needed to see the sunrise at Haleakala, even though it meant getting up at 3 a.m. It was worth it, though." That moment when the sun broke over the crater, I reached across the table to touch his hand. I knew then that I wanted to watch sunrises with you for the rest of my life. Something flickered across his face so quick, I almost missed it. Guilt? Regret? But then he was squeezing my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "You're the most beautiful woman here," he murmured, inside and out. After dinner, we walked along the moonlit beach, waves lapping at our bare feet. David pulled me close, and we swayed together to the distant sound of a ukulele from the resort's luau. This was the man I'd fallen in love with, attentive, romantic. "Present, I love you, Sarah," he whispered into my hair. "Don't ever forget that." The intensity in his voice caught me off guard. "I love you too." "David, is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," he said. But his arms tightened around me like he was trying to memorize the moment. Back in our suite, passion ignited between us with an urgency I hadn't felt in months. Every touch, every kiss felt desperate, as if we were both trying to bridge an invisible gap. Afterward, I lay in his arms, listening to the ocean through our open balcony doors, feeling more connected to him than I had in a year. "This is what we needed," I whispered against his chest. "Just us, away from all the noise." David's hand stroked my hair rhythmically. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It is." I drifted off to sleep, feeling hopeful for the first time in months, unaware that while I dreamed of our renewed connection, David lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his phone buzzing silently on the nightstand with messages I wasn't meant to see. The next morning, I woke to find David's side of the bed empty. Sunlight streamed through the gauze curtains, and I could hear the shower running in the bathroom. I stretched luxuriously, still glowing from the night before. "Morning, handsome," I called out, padding to the bathroom door. "Morning, babe," came his muffled reply. "I'll be out in a minute." I noticed his phone on the dresser, face down as always lately. A pang of unease twisted in my stomach, but I forced it away. We'd had such a beautiful evening. I wouldn't let paranoia poison this trip. When David emerged from the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, I was struck again by how attractive he was. Law school had been kind to him. He'd maintained his college athlete physique while developing the confidence that came with success. Room service should be here soon, I said, wrapping my arms around his waist. I ordered your favorite Eggs Benedict and fresh fruit. Perfect, he said, kissing the top of my head. But I noticed he was already reaching for his phone. That familiar gesture that had become as automatic as breathing. No work today, I said playfully, trying to intercept his hand. Remember, we agreed. David paused, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Just need to check one thing. You know how Henderson gets? Richard Henderson, the senior partner at David's firm, had become the excuse for everything lately. Late dinners, weekend work, missed anniversaries. I bit back my frustration. We were in paradise. I could share him with Henderson for 5 minutes, but 5 minutes turned into 20, then 30. David sat on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, his voice too low for me to catch actual words. I ate breakfast alone, watching him through the glass doors, noting how his free hand gestured animatedly the way it did when he was negotiating or arguing a point. When he finally came back, inside I was dressed and ready for the beach. Sorry about that, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Crisis averted. What kind of crisis? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Boring, legal stuff. Nothing you need to worry about. He grabbed his swim trunks from the dresser. Ready for some sun. The dismissal stung, but I plastered on a smile. Always. We spent the day at the beach, playing in the waves, building sandcastles like teenagers, taking selfies with Diamond Head in the background. David seemed determined to be the perfect vacation, husband attentive, playful, romantic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was performing rather than just being present during lunch at the beachside grill. His phone buzzed constantly, each time he glanced at it with an expression I couldn't quite read, part anxiety, part something else. Anticipation, excitement. Popular guy today, I teased after the 5th interruption. David's smile was tight. You know how it is, the price of success. But I was starting to wonder if success was worth the price we were paying. That afternoon, while David dozed on his beach chair, I studied his face in the dappled shade of our umbrella. Even in sleep, there was tension around his eyes, a furrow between his brows that hadn't been there when we'd married. When had he started carrying so much stress? When had I stopped being the person he turned to for comfort? Mrs. Chen, a young woman in a resort uniform, approached our chairs. I have a message for you. I took the folded paper, expecting maybe a spa confirmation or dinner reservation. Instead, I found a handwritten note from the concierge. Your husband asked us to arrange a private dinner on the beach tomorrow night. He wants it to be a surprise. Please don't mention it to him. He's very excited about it. Warmth flooded through me. This was the David I'd married, thoughtful, romantic, full of surprises. Maybe I'd been reading too much into his distraction. Maybe he was just trying to make this trip perfect for us. I glanced over at him. Now, awake and scrolling through his phone again, and felt a surge of love so strong it took my breath away. Whatever problems we'd been having, we could work through them. This trip was proof that underneath all the stress and routine, we still had something worth fighting for. Everything okay? David asked, noticing my expression. Everything's perfect, I said, meaning it for the first time in months. But as I watched him turn back to his phone, fingers flying over the keyboard with an urgency that seemed at odds with our tropical paradise, I couldn't quite silence the small voice in the back of my mind whispering that perfect was often just another word for too good to be true. The third day dawned with the kind of spectacular sunrise that made Hawaiian sunrises famous. Layers of gold and coral painting the sky while gentle waves whispered against the shore. I woke early, energized by the prospect of our surprise beach dinner that evening, and decided to let David sleep. While I grabbed coffee and pastries from the resort cafe, the lobby buzzed with early morning activity, families heading out for snorkeling excursions, couples planning volcano tours, business travelers already on their phones despite the early hour. I loved this time of day in hotels, the sense of possibility and adventure in the air. Mrs. Chen, the concierge. Marcus waved me over with a conspiratorial smile. Everything is set for tonight. Your husband has excellent taste. The setup will be absolutely magical. I can't wait, I said, genuinely excited. He's full of surprises. The best husbands always are, Marcus replied with a wink. I was still smiling as I made my way back to our suite, balancing coffee and a bag of fresh molasses. Maybe this was exactly what our marriage needed: romance, adventure, uninterrupted time together. When I slid the keycard, I expected to find David still sleeping or maybe in the shower instead. I found him fully dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop open and his phone pressed to his ear. His suitcase lay open beside him, clothes haphazardly stuffed inside. "Yes, I understand the timeline," he was saying, his voice sharp with stress. "But I need you to push the meeting to Friday. I'll be back Thursday night." My heart sank. "David." He looked up, his face cycling through emotions, surprise, guilt, something that looked almost like panic. "Sarah. Hey, I was just packing," I said, setting down the coffee with hands that had suddenly started shaking. "We're not supposed to leave until tomorrow." David ended his call without saying goodbye and closed the laptop. "I know, and I'm so sorry. Something came up at the firm. A major client emergency." "What kind of emergency?" I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "The Morrison acquisition is falling apart. Henderson needs me back. To salvage it." He stood up, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "It's just one day early, Sarah. We've had 3 amazing days, 3 days out of a week, we planned." My voice was embarrassingly shaky. "David, we talked about this. We agreed. This trip was about us." "It is about us," he said, but he was already moving around the room, gathering toiletries. "This partnership means everything to our future. You know that." I watched him pack with practiced efficiency, as if he'd done this before. Work over us, over me. "When did the call come in?" "What? The emergency call? When did Henderson call you?" David paused, a shirt halfway into his suitcase. "This morning? Early?" "How early?" "Sarah, what does it matter how early, David?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Around 6. But I'd been awake at 6, lying next to him, watching him sleep. His phone hadn't rung. I was sure of it. I didn't hear your phone ring," I said quietly. David's jaw tightened. "Maybe you were in the bathroom. Or asleep." "I don't know, Sarah. Does it really matter? The point is, I have to go." The lie sat between us like a physical thing. I could feel it, heavy and wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to call him out directly. Instead, I watched him pack, noting how quickly he moved, how he avoided my eyes. "What about tonight?" I asked. "The dinner reservations." Another pause, longer this time. "What dinner reservations?" My stomach dropped. "The ones you made? The special dinner." David's face went blank. "I didn't make any dinner reservations." The confusion in his voice was either genuine or he was a better actor than I'd ever given him credit for. But the concierge had been so specific, so excited about David's romantic plans. "Marcus at the concierge desk said you arranged a surprise. Dinner for tonight. On the beach." David stood frozen, his hands gripping a pair of khakis. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then he shook his head slowly. "I think there's been some kind of mistake. Maybe another guest with the same last name. I didn't arrange anything, Sarah. I wouldn't have if I knew I might have to leave early." But even as he said it, I could see something in his eyes. Not confusion, but calculation, like he was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much damage control he needed to do. "I'm going to call the concierge," I said, reaching for the room phone. "Sarah, don't." David's voice was sharp enough to make me freeze. "Look, maybe I mentioned something to someone and forgot about it. But it doesn't matter now because I have to leave. Maybe you mentioned something." My voice was rising. Despite my efforts to stay calm, "David, you either made reservations or you didn't. You either planned a romantic dinner or you didn't. Which is it?" "Does it matter?" he snapped, then immediately looked contrite. "I'm sorry, I'm just stressed about this work situation. Look, stay and enjoy the dinner, enjoy the beach. Take the spa day we talked about. Just because I have to leave doesn't mean your vacation has to end." The casualness of it, the assumption that I'd want to stay alone in paradise while he flew back to whatever was so important, stung more than I expected. "You want me to have a romantic dinner by myself?" "Sarah, please don't make this harder than it has to be." David zipped his suitcase closed with finality. "I'll make it up to you. We'll plan another trip, just the 2 of us." When I asked, "When will we plan another trip? When will you have time between Morrison acquisitions and Henderson emergencies and partnership meetings?" David paused at the bathroom door. "I don't know. Soon? That's what you said about this trip 6 months ago. And about our anniversary dinner. And about the weekend in Napa we never took. This is my career, Sarah. Our future. I thought you understood that. I understand that your career matters to you. What I don't understand is when I stopped mattering." The words hung in the air between us, raw and honest in a way that made David flinch. For a moment, I thought he might say something real, something true. Instead, he disappeared into the bathroom. I sank onto the bed, staring at his packed suitcase. Something was wrong, had been wrong for months, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. The phone calls, the secrecy, the emotional distance, and now this sudden departure that felt more choreographed than spontaneous. I picked up his laptop, still warm from use, and opened it before I could second-guess myself. The screen was locked, but I could see notifications in the corner, dozens of emails, calendar reminders, messaging alerts. What are you doing? I looked up to find David standing in the bathroom doorway, his face a mask of controlled anger. I was just going through my computer. The screen was open. I saw the notifications and wondered, what, Sarah? What exactly are you accusing me of? The coldness in his voice was like a slap. This wasn't the man who'd held me on the beach 2 nights ago, who'd whispered that he loved me like it was a secret. I'm not accusing you of anything, I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. I'm just trying to understand what's happening with us. David closed the laptop and slipped it into his bag. What's happening is that I have responsibilities. Adult responsibilities that don't stop just because we're on vacation. Adult responsibilities, I repeated. Is that what I am now? A responsibility? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, David? Because lately I feel like everything about our life together is just another item on your to-do list, including this trip. David sat on the bed beside me, and for a moment I thought he might finally tell me what was really going on. Instead, he took my hands in his eye gesture that once would have comforted me, but now felt performative. Sarah, I love you. You know, I love you, but this partnership opportunity is huge for us, for our future. Kids, houses, everything we've talked about, toot. All depends on me making partner. We've never talked about kids, I said quietly. David blinked. What? You said kids? Houses? Everything we've talked about? But we've never talked about having children. David? Not once in 15 years? The silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of waves outside our balcony and the distant laughter of other couples enjoying their vacations. We've talked about the future, David said finally. Your future, your partnership, your career goals. When did we last talk about my future? My dreams. David's hands tightened on mine. Your interior design business is doing great. You love what you do. That's not what I'm talking about, and you know it. Before David could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and I saw something flicker across his face. Relief. He answered on the second ring. Henderson, thank God. Are you sure? There's no other way to handle this. A pause. Okay. I'll be on the next flight. He hung up and turned to me with an expression that was equal parts apology and resignation. My car will be here in 20 minutes. Of course it will, I said. David finished packing in silence while I sat on the bed trying to process what had just happened. The romantic getaway I'd hoped would save our marriage was ending with my husband fleeing back to Chicago, like our time together was a prison sentence. I really am sorry, David said as he shouldered his garment bag. Finish the vacation. Enjoy. The spa, the beaches. This is a beautiful place. It is beautiful, I agreed. It would have been more beautiful with my husband. David paused at the door. I'll call you tonight. We'll talk. Will we, or will you be too busy with Henderson and Morrison and all the other things that matter more than I do? Sarah, go, I said, not looking at him. Go save your acquisition. After he left, I sat in the silence of our suite, listening to the ocean and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The romance of the past 3 days felt like a mirage now. Beautiful from a distance, but dissolving the moment you got close. I picked up the room phone and dialed. The concierge? Marcus. This is Sarah Chen in suite 412. About the dinner arrangements my husband made. Oh yes, everything is confirmed for tonight. Sunset Beach setup, your husband's favorite wine, the special menu he requested. It's going to be absolutely perfect. My blood ran cold. When exactly did my husband make these arrangements? Let me check. He called down Tuesday morning, very specific about wanting everything to be romantic and special. Mentioned it was for your anniversary. Tuesday morning, the day after we'd arrived. The day David had been on the phone for 30 minutes, supposedly dealing with Henderson's crisis. Mrs. Chen, are you still there? Yes, I managed. Yes, I'm here. About tonight, I think we'll need to cancel. Cancel. Oh no, is everything? All right. I stared out at the perfect blue ocean, at the paradise that was supposed to heal my marriage, and felt something crack inside my chest. Everything's fine, I lied. We just need to cancel. But as I hung up the phone, I realized that nothing was fine. David had planned a romantic dinner for tonight the night before we were supposed to leave together. He'd arranged something special, then fabricated an emergency to leave early, abandoning both me and his own romantic gesture. The question was, why? And as I sat alone in our honeymoon suite, surrounded by the remnants of our abbreviated vacation, I started to suspect that the answer was going to break my heart. I couldn't stay in that suite. Every corner held memories from the past 3 days, David's cologne lingering on his pillow, our champagne glasses from the first night still sitting on the balcony table, his forgotten phone charger plugged into the wall like evidence of how quickly he'd fled. I changed into a sundress and wandered down to the lobby, feeling unmoored. Other couples moved through the resort with easy familiarity, holding hands, sharing inside jokes, planning their days together. Had David and I ever looked that natural together, or had I been fooling myself for 15 years? Mrs. Chen. Marcus approached with his usual bright smile, which faltered when he saw my expression. I hope you're not upset about the dinner. Cancellation. We can certainly reschedule for tomorrow if your husband's meeting ends early. Actually, Marcus, I was hoping you could help me understand something. My husband's call on Tuesday. Do you remember what time that was? Marcus consulted his tablet. Tuesday morning, 8:47 a.m. He was very specific about the timing and setup. Wanted everything to be perfect for your last night. My last night, not our last night. Did he mention anything about potentially leaving early? Marcus looked confused. No, quite the opposite. He was excited about surprising you, said it would be the perfect end to a perfect trip. Very romantic gentleman, your husband. The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. David had planned a romantic dinner, knowing he intended to leave before it happened. Why arrange something elaborate for a night you wouldn't be there to enjoy? Unless you weren't planning to be there from the beginning. Mrs. Chen, is everything all right? You look a bit pale. I'm fine, I said automatically. Thank you for checking. But I wasn't fine. I was starting to understand that this entire trip might have been something other than what I'd believed. I found myself at the business center, a small room off the lobby with computers and a printer. The space was empty except for a middle-aged man in a polo shirt pecking at a keyboard with 2 fingers. I sat at a computer and opened a browser, my hands shaking slightly as I navigated to our airline's website. It took me 3 tries to remember David's frequent flyer number, but when I finally accessed his account, my worst suspicions were confirmed. David had changed his flight 2 weeks ago, not this morning. Not because of Henderson's emergency. 2 weeks ago, before we'd even left Chicago, the reservation showed his original return flight tomorrow. Then, a modification dated 14 days prior, changing him to today's departure. There was even a note in the booking. Personal reasons, passenger requested earlier return. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Personal reasons, not work emergency, not Henderson's crisis. Personal reasons, which meant everything his surprise at having to leave. His apologies, his promises to make it up to me had been an elaborate performance, ma'am. The man in the polo shirt was looking at me with concern. Are you okay? I realized I was crying. I'm fine, thank you. But I wasn't fine. I was devastated and increasingly angry. I printed the flight confirmation and walked back to our suite on unsteady legs. The room felt different now, not like a romantic getaway, but like a crime scene. I started looking at everything with new eyes. David's clothes were gone, but he'd left behind small things: a hotel pen on the nightstand, his sunscreen on the bathroom counter, a receipt from the resort gift shop tucked under his laptop charger. I unfolded the receipt and felt my stomach drop. It was dated yesterday, for a purchase I didn't remember, a greeting card and a small jewelry box. David had bought something at the gift shop yesterday while I was at the spa, something he'd hidden from me. I called the gift shop, my heart pounding. Hi, this is Sarah Chen in Suite 412. My husband bought something yesterday and I think there might have been a mistake with the charge. Could you tell me what he purchased? Let me check. Yes, Mr. Chen, he bought a sympathy card and a small jewelry box. Very nice man. Said it was for something special. A sympathy card. Not anniversary, not romantic. Sympathy. Do you remember what he said it was for? He mentioned it was for a difficult conversation he needed to have. Seemed quite nervous about it, actually. I hung up and sat on the bed, the receipt crumpling in my hands. A sympathy card and a jewelry box for a difficult conversation. The timeline was becoming clearer, and it was worse than I'd imagined. David had planned to leave early from the beginning. He'd bought a sympathy card and jewelry, perhaps, as some kind of consolation prize for a conversation we were supposed to have. Tonight, at the romantic dinner he'd arranged but never intended to attend. The dinner wasn't for romance. It was meant to be the setting for him to end our marriage, and then he'd lost his nerve and fled instead. My phone rang. David's contact photo filling the screen, a picture of him laughing at Navy Pier from our 5th anniversary. He looked so young, so happy, so in love with me. Sarah, how are you doing? His voice was carefully neutral, the tone he used with difficult clients. I'm great, David. Just living it up in paradise. I kept my voice light, conversational. How Was your flight long, turbulent? I'm sorry again about having to leave early. Oh, don't worry about it. These things happen. How's the Morrison acquisition going? A pause. It's complicated. Lot of moving pieces. I'm sure Henderson was relieved. To have you back? Yeah, he was. I closed my eyes. Even now, even caught in his web of lies, he was still lying to me. David, what's Morrison Industries' stock symbol? What? For the acquisition that was so urgent, I want to follow it in the news. See how your brilliant legal work saves the day? Silence stretched between us. When David finally spoke, his voice was different, deflated, maybe even relieved. Sarah, what's going on? You tell me. You're the one with all the answers lately. I don't know what you mean. I know you changed your flight 2 weeks ago, David. I know about the gift shop purchase yesterday. I know you arranged tonight's dinner knowing you wouldn't be there for it. The silence was so long, I wondered if he'd hung up. Sarah, don't. Just don't. I'm trying very hard to stay calm right now, but if you lie to me one more time, I'm going to lose it completely. I was going to tell you tonight. The simple admission hit me harder than any of his lies. Tell me what? About the divorce? There. It was the word that had been lurking in the shadows of our marriage for months, maybe years. Hearing it spoken aloud felt like being punched in the chest. How long? I whispered. How long? What? How long have you been planning this? Another long pause. A few months. Since Christmas, really. Christmas. When I'd given him the expensive watch he'd wanted. When we'd talked about planning this trip. When I'd told him I loved him and meant it completely. Why? My voice cracked on the word. Sarah, we've been growing apart for years. You know we have. No, I've been trying to grow closer and you've been pulling away. I didn't know you'd already given up. I haven't given up. I think we want different things now. What do I want, David? Since you seem to know me so well, you want the fairy tale? The romance, the grand gestures, the perfect marriage? You want me to be someone I'm not. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. But it wasn't the whole story. I want you to want to be married to me, I said. I want you to prioritize us sometimes. I want you to talk to me instead of shutting me out. I want to feel like your wife instead of your roommate. We could have talked about this at home. Could we, when David, between your 14-hour days and your business dinners and your weekend work sessions? When exactly were we going to have this conversation? I thought doing it here, somewhere beautiful, might make it easier. Easier? For who? For you. Because abandoning me in paradise to avoid a difficult conversation seems pretty cowardly to me. I didn't abandon you. You arranged a romantic dinner you never intended to attend. Bought me a sympathy card and jewelry as consolation prizes, and then fled the state rather than face me. If that's not abandonment, what is? David sighed, and I could picture him running his hand through his hair the way he did when he was frustrated. You're right. I handled this badly. I just thought, you thought, what? Plan it out. Control all the variables. Minimize the damage to your reputation. It's not like that. Then what is it like, David? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying to me for months while you've planned the end of our marriage. It looks like you brought me to Hawaii to break up with me and then couldn't even do that right. I do love you, Sarah. The words should have comforted me, but they felt hollow now. No, you don't. You love who you think I should be. You love the idea of having a wife who doesn't expect anything from you, but you don't love me. That's not true. When's my birthday, David? What? My birthday? When is it? Silence. What's my favorite color? What did I want to be when I grew up? What's my biggest fear? Name one dream I've shared with you in the past 5 years. Sarah, this isn't fair. Life isn't fair. Marriage isn't fair. But it's supposed to be a partnership. And partners know each other. Partners don't plan secret divorces and romantic diversions and coordinated abandonments. I was crying now, angry tears that felt hot on my cheeks. I thought if we could just get away from all the distractions, we could remember why we fell in love. But you were already gone, weren't you? You were just going through the motions. The past 3 days were real, David said quietly. What happened between us here was real, was it? Or was it just your guilty conscience making one last effort before you destroyed everything? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe both. The honesty was refreshing and devastating at the same time. Where are you really? I asked. And don't say Chicago dealing with Henderson's emergency. I'm at the Marriott by O'Hare. I couldn't face going home yet, to our home. Yes, the home. I've been decorating and maintaining and treating like our sanctuary while you've been planning to leave it. Sarah, I need to go, I said. I need to think. What are you going to do? It was a loaded question. Was I going to fight for our marriage? Accept the divorce gracefully? Make a scene? David was probably calculating the potential damage to his reputation, his career prospects. I don't know yet, I said. But David, yeah. When I figure it out, you'll be the first to know. I hung up and sat in the silence of our abandoned honeymoon suite, staring out at the perfect blue ocean that had witnessed the beginning and end of my marriage in the span of 4 days. But as the shock began to wear off, something else took its place. Not just sadness or betrayal, but a cold, clear anger that sharpened my thoughts and steadied my hands. David thought he could orchestrate our divorce like a business transaction. He thought he could manipulate me with romantic gestures and then abandon me to clean up the emotional mess. He was wrong, and I was about to show him exactly how wrong he was. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the balcony watching the moon reflect off the Pacific, my mind spinning with revelations and building a plan that David would never see coming. By sunrise, I knew exactly what I was going to do. First, I called my best friend, Jessica, in Chicago. We'd known each other since college, and she was the only person who'd consistently called out David's behavior over the years: the missed dinners, the broken promises, the gradual erosion of his investment in our marriage. "Sarah, it's 6 a.m. in Hawaii. Are you okay?" "No," I said simply. "I'm not okay, but I'm about to be." I told her everything: the fake emergency, the pre-planned flight change, the sympathy card and jewelry, the romantic dinner meant to soften the blow of divorce papers. Jessica listened without interruption, occasionally making small sounds of disgust. "That manipulative son of a bitch," she said when I finished. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. But also, I'm proud of you for figuring it out. I need your help with something. Anything. I need you to go to my house, our house, and document everything. Take pictures of David's office, his closet, anywhere he might have hidden divorce papers or evidence of his planning. I also need you to call Mitchell." Mitchell Zhao was my divorce attorney friend from Northwestern who specialized in high-asset cases. I'd never imagined I'd need his services personally. "You want me to beat David to the punch?" "I want to be prepared. Knowledge is power, and David's been operating with more knowledge than me for months. Time to level the playing field." Jessica's voice was fierce with loyalty. "Whatever you're planning, I'm here for it." After I hung up, I called the resort spa and booked every available treatment: massage, facial, body wrap, mani-pedi, the works. If David thought he could abandon me in paradise, I was going to make sure his credit card felt the full weight of Paradise's pricing. Then I called room service and ordered the most expensive bottle of champagne they had, along with fresh strawberries and Belgian chocolate. If this was going to be my last night as a married woman, I was going to make it memorable. But the real work began when I opened my laptop and started digging. David might have been a successful attorney, but he'd made one crucial mistake. Underestimated his wife. I'd been managing our household finances for 15 years. I knew every account, every password, every financial detail of our life together. And while David had been planning his exit strategy, he'd gotten sloppy. Our joint credit card showed charges I didn't recognize over the past 3 months. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Hotel charges in Chicago. When David claimed to be working late, most damning of all, a payment to a law firm that wasn't his own, a family law practice downtown. I screenshotted everything next. I accessed our joint cell phone account. David's phone records revealed a pattern of calls and texts to numbers I didn't recognize, with frequency increasing dramatically over the past 6 weeks. One number appeared repeatedly, often late at night or early in the morning. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number, my heart pounding. "Hello?" The voice was female, young, unfamiliar. I hung up immediately, but I'd heard enough. The pieces were falling into place with devastating clarity. This wasn't just about David wanting a divorce. This was about David wanting a divorce, so he could be with someone else. My hands were shaking as I called Jessica back. "I need you to add something to your house investigation," I said without preamble. "I need you to check David's computer history, his email if you can access it. Anything that might reveal who he's been talking to. Sarah, what did you find? I think there's someone else." The silence on the other end was heavy with shared pain. Jessica had been through her own ugly divorce 3 years earlier. "That bastard," she said finally. "Okay, I'm on it. Mitchell's already agreed to meet with you as soon as you're back. And Sarah, don't do anything crazy while you're still in Hawaii. Define crazy. Don't confront the other woman. Don't post anything on social media. Don't make any decisions you can't take back." "I won't," I promised, though my definition of crazy might be different from hers. After hanging up, I spent the afternoon at the spa, letting skilled hands work out months of tension while my mind sharpened into focus. The massage therapist commented on how tight my shoulders were, how much stress I carried in my neck. "Big life changes can manifest physically," she said, as she worked on a particularly stubborn knot. "Your body knows before your mind does sometimes." If only she knew. That evening, I dressed carefully for the dinner David had arranged but abandoned. I chose a stunning red dress I'd brought for our anniversary celebration, paired with the diamond earrings David had given me for our 10th anniversary. If this was going to be a farewell dinner, I wanted to look perfect for it. The beach setup was breathtaking. Marcus and his team had created a private dining area on the sand, complete with twinkling lights, tropical flowers, and a table set for two overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting in layers of orange and pink, and the whole scene looked like something from a movie. Mrs. Chen, Marcus approached with obvious concern. "Will Mr. Chen be joining you this evening?" "No," I said, settling into one of the chairs. "Mr. Chen had to leave unexpectedly, but I didn't want all your beautiful work to go to waste." Marcus looked uncertain. "Perhaps we could reset for one person. Actually, I was hoping someone could join me. I hate to eat alone, and this is far too romantic a setting to waste." Within minutes, Marcus had arranged for Alina, one of the resort's guest relations managers, to join me. She was a lovely woman in her 40s who'd moved to Maui from San Francisco after her own divorce. "I hope you don't mind the company," she said as we settled in with champagne. "Marcus thought you might enjoy some conversation." "I do," I said, raising my glass to new beginnings. As we ate, I found myself telling Alina about my marriage, my husband's deception, my plans for the future. She listened with the wisdom of someone who'd been through her own relationship upheaval. "The hardest part," Alina said as we shared the chocolate lava cake David had specially requested, "is realizing that you've been mourning the relationship for longer than you knew. By the time someone gets to the point of planning a secret divorce, the marriage has been over for a while." "How long were you married?" 18 years. "And like you, I spent the last few trying to save something that was already dead. My ex just didn't have the courage to tell me." "Do you regret fighting for it?" Alina considered the question as waves lapped gently at the shore. "I regret not fighting for myself sooner. I regret making myself smaller to accommodate someone who had already checked out. But I don't regret loving fully, even when it wasn't returned." After dinner, I walked along the moonlit beach alone, my phone buzzing with increasingly frantic texts from David. He'd apparently tried calling the room and been told I was at dinner. Now he was worried about what? I wasn't sure. That I was having a breakdown, that I was causing a scene, that his carefully managed exit strategy was spiraling out of control. I ignored the texts and called Mitchell instead. "Sarah," Jessica filled me in. "I'm so sorry you're going through this." "Thanks, Mitch. What do I need to know?" "First, document everything. Every lie, every piece of evidence, every financial irregularity. Illinois is a no-fault state, but judges still consider behavior when dividing assets. What about the fact that he planned this while pretending to work on our marriage? That shows bad faith. Which matters? The fact that he used marital funds to plan the divorce and possibly pursue another relationship? That definitely matters. Jessica's gathering everything from your house. When you get back, we'll strategize, and if there's another woman, then we have leverage. Adultery might not affect the divorce decree, but it affects public perception. And for someone like David, whose career depends on his reputation, ... double quotes, Mitchell didn't need to finish the sentence. David's law firm was old school, conservative, built on family values and community standing. A messy divorce involving infidelity could damage his partnership prospects significantly. I'm not vindictive, Mitch. I don't want to destroy his life. Of course not. But you deserve a fair settlement. And he's been playing games with your emotions and your future. It's time to play a little hardball. That night, I sat on the balcony with my laptop and composed an email to David. I wrote draft after draft, each one angrier than the last, before finally settling on something that would accomplish exactly what I wanted. "David," I wrote, "I've had time to think about our conversation, and I've decided you're right. We do want different things. I want honesty, partnership, and respect. You want to orchestrate major life decisions behind my back while pretending to be a loving husband? I want you to know that I understand exactly what you've been doing for the past few months. I know about the flight change, the divorce attorney, consultations, the charges on our credit card that don't match your stated whereabouts. I know about the phone calls and text messages to numbers I don't recognize. What I don't understand is why you thought you could manipulate and deceive me without consequences. I'll be returning to Chicago tomorrow as originally planned, I suggest. You use the time to think carefully about how you want to proceed, because your days of controlling this narrative are over. See you soon, Sarah P.S. The dinner you arranged was lovely. Thank you for inadvertently giving me the perfect setting to plan my next chapter." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone and poured another glass of champagne. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful, my last morning in paradise. I packed slowly, savoring each moment of the peaceful suite that had been the backdrop for my marriage's end and my own rebirth. As I was about to leave for the airport, Marcus appeared with a small envelope. "Mrs. Chen, this arrived for you this morning." Inside was a simple card with a handwritten note. "Thank you for the dinner conversation and the reminder that endings can be beginnings. You're going to be fine." Alina. At the airport, I bought a magazine and settled in for the long flight home. As we took off, I looked down at the islands growing smaller below us and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: excitement. About the future, David thought he'd been planning a divorce. What he'd actually been planning was my liberation. My phone turned back on as we reached cruising altitude, immediately buzzed with notifications. Dozens of texts from David, ranging from confused to angry to pleading. 3 voicemails, 2 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all and opened a text to Jessica instead. "Landing at 6 p.m., Mitchell meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. How did the house search go?" Her response came immediately. "Oh honey, you're going to want to sit down when you see what I found. David's been busy, but he's also been sloppy. We've got him." I smiled and settled back in my seat. Whatever David had thought he was orchestrating in Hawaii, he'd actually handed me every tool I needed to take control of our divorce. He'd wanted to surprise me with the end of our marriage. Instead, he was about to discover that the biggest surprise was what his wife was capable of when she finally stopped playing by his rules. The plane banked toward Chicago, carrying me home to a future that was entirely my own. David had thought he was the author of our story's ending, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd always been the better writer, and this story was far from over. As the city lights of Chicago came into view, I composed one final text to my soon-to-be ex-husband. "David, I hope you enjoyed your head start, because now it's my turn. Welcome to the consequences of your choices. Sarah." The response came within seconds. "Sarah, we need to talk." I turned off my phone without replying. We would talk, eventually. But when we did, it would be on my terms, with my attorney present and with all the cards finally on the table. David had wanted to control our ending. Instead, he'd given me the perfect beginning. The plane touched down in Chicago, and I walked into my new life with my head held high, ready to show my husband exactly what happened when you underestimated the woman you'd promised to love and honor. He was about to learn that the most dangerous person in any negotiation is someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to gain, and I had both.